Hello, you awakening wonders. Welcome to Stay Free with Russell Brand. Thanks for joining us for a very special show with a live audience. Wherever you're watching this right now, the first 10-15 minutes will be available on YouTube. Then we're going to click over to being exclusively on Rumble because the free speech must reign supreme. We're going to say stuff that the mainstream don't want you having access to, particularly because our guest today is a fantastic radical enemy of orthodoxy, but powerful ally of truth. I've been friends with this man for a very, very long time. If you're not a member of our locals community yet, sign up to our locals community right now. Not only do you get my stand-up special Brandemic included in that package, though you can buy it as a one-off deal, you could also come and attend live events like these people are right now. Give us a round of applause and a cheer. That's right. That is the sweet sound of freedom. And before that sound dims, please welcome to the stage my special guest, Graham Hancock.
There are forces at work in our society that do not want people thinking for themselves. I think the problem is the institution of archaeology.
What you don't need is institutionalized elite class that's saying we're the only people that are allowed to discuss this.
It did make me think, why don't you But once you get back into the remote past where you don't have documents and you're dealing with artifacts dug out of the ground, they seem to feel that only archaeologists are authorized to speak about this. And this is part of an overall process in our society to actually make us less free while convincing us that we're completely free.
Come and get us is the shift that's being made.
There needs to be an awakening around this because there are sinister forces at work.
Stay free with Russell Brand. See it first on Rumble. Graham, before we get into some of the more controversial stuff that we'll keep exclusive for our Rumble audience, in particular I want to talk about the way that you've been smeared and condemned for a subject that I wouldn't consider to be as contentious as evidently the mainstream consider it to be. Before we get into that and talking about what the objectives of the mainstream media are, we'll just lightly introduce ourselves for 10 minutes by asking you, what is it, Graham, that first ignited your interest in arcane civilizations? What is it in particular that you think is being revealed or being neglected by the potential for a cataclysmic event that obscures the origin of our species?
I think the problem is the institution of archaeology. I want to be clear, I have nothing against individual archaeologists. On the contrary, I've met many wonderful individual archaeologists, and I couldn't do the work that I do without the work that archaeology has done. But there's a difference between individual archaeologists and archaeology speaking as an institution, for example, the Society for American Archaeology with its 5,000 members. And they seem to take a view that the only people who are entitled to interpret the past of humanity are archaeologists, particularly the remote past. There's a role for historians, of course, where we have documents. But once you get back into the remote past where you don't have documents and you're dealing with artifacts dug out of the ground, they seem to feel that only archaeologists are authorized to speak about this, and that anybody else who puts a different point of view into the conversation is a danger and a threat. And must be silenced. And I was disappointed by, not so much by the archaeologists because I kind of expected this, but I was disappointed by the idleness and lack of rigor of journalists who covered this story, who simply took their cues from archaeology, never talked to me, and published stories about it, which were often very unpleasant. At the same time, I've had a major Netflix show. My voice is out there, and it's right and proper that it should be opposed and countermanded. I'm pleased that it started a conversation and a debate around all this. But what I object to is when people create straw men around my work. A lot of it is Graham Hancock says this, Graham Hancock says that. There's loads of headlines like that. There's a YouTube video right now which says Graham Hancock says all archaeologists are lying. No, I never say that. I do not say that. I absolutely don't say that. And I found again and again in the critiques that have been floated about my work that individuals are saying that Hancock says this, when in fact I never do say that. And then they attack that straw man and hope that nobody will look deeper and investigate into. The whole project seems to have been to prevent people or discourage people from exploring my work. And that's when I came to realize that I'm involved in some kind of propaganda war here. This is the tools of propaganda are being used by mainstream archaeology as an institution in order to beat down alternative narratives. And I don't think that's healthy at all.
It's interesting that in such a short period of time, the ability to communicate openly around a range of subjects that I find surprising, in so much as I find it surprising that it's become extensively censored and so rapidly. It suggests that there's been some kind of seismic shift in the way that information is handled, that authoritarianism is on the rise. And accompanying that, of course, we're aware that surveillance and censorship are increasing, that looking for opportunities to regulate appears to be a kind of guiding principle in the approach to crisis as broad, across as broad a range of subjects as war and even health. Like they become sort of approached in this aggressively regulatory manner. The thing that interests me, and we'll touch more deeply upon the more controversial aspects of the reporting on your work exclusively on Rumble in just a few more minutes. So if you're watching this on YouTube now, click on the link in the description so that you can join us over there. But first of all, I'd like to just have a basic understanding, if I may, of the fundamental argument, at least the one that I hear you advancing more recently, that there was a seismic cataclysmic event at some point. I feel like you say often it was around 12,000 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't a single moment, it was an episode. It lasted for about 1,200 years. And
that's ages.
Yeah, it's a long episode. Take 1,200 years off now and you're back in the medieval times, early medieval. So it's a long time, but the fact of the matter is that it wasn't just one event. It was a series of events. It unfolded between 12,800 and 11,600 years ago, give or take a few years. It saw the extinction of almost all of the large animal species of the Ice Age, the woolly rhinos, the mammoths, the mastodons, the saber-toothed tigers, the giant sloths. They all went down at that time. It was worldwide. There was a massive extinction. There was a huge change of climate. We'd been coming out of the Ice Age, the world had been warming up, and then suddenly it just got freezing cold again, as cold as it had been at the peak of the Ice Age. And weirdly, at that moment, around 12,800 years ago, and this shouldn't happen when the Earth goes into a freezing period, there was a rise in sea level, which meant that water that should have stayed frozen had come off the ice caps and was entering the world ocean. And that rise in sea level of freezing water coming off the ice caps cut the Gulf Stream and stopped what's called the global meridional circulation, which is a central heating system of our planet. It kept the Earth cold for a very long time. And geologists have been aware of this. The episode is called the Younger Dryas for a very long time. But why did it happen? That's the issue. And a number of theories just focus on that changing of ocean currents and saying that's what made the Earth cold, without saying why did the ocean currents change. And the best explanation for that is put forward by a group called the Comet Research Group. They started off as about 60, all mainstream scientists. There are now more than 100 of them. They've published dozens of papers in peer-reviewed journals. And they're saying that what happened 12,800 years ago was that the Earth ran into the debris stream of a disintegrating comet. All comets disintegrate. It's a normal part of comet behavior. Whenever we look at a shooting star in the sky, a little meteor shooting through the sky, that is a bit of an old comet. All of them are. They break up into multiple fragments. We saw it massively with comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, which hit Jupiter in 1994. It broke up into 21 fragments. It was witnessed by telescopes. Bombarded Jupiter, just huge explosions, some of them the size of the Earth itself. But, you know, Jupiter can take it. What happened to the Earth was that a comet, which was estimated originally to have been 100 miles in diameter, entered the inner solar system, was tugged on by gravitational forces, began to break up into multiple fragments, and 12,800 years ago, the first bunch of those fragments, like a shotgun blast, peppered the Earth. And because the Earth is turning, that peppering covered a very wide expanse of the Earth's surface, right from North America right across to Syria. There's evidence of these impacts, airbursts, explosions in the sky, sometimes on the ground, and then further evidence which takes it down into South America and as far south as Antarctica. It's called the Younger Dryas boundary layer. And the only possible explanation for it, in my view, and I've been through all possible explanations, the best one is the fragmenting comet explanation. And then, because the fragmenting comet creates a meteor stream, that meteor stream, by the way, still exists. It's called the Taurid meteor stream. And we pass through it twice a year. And that's why we have the so-called Halloween fireworks. We see a lot of shooting stars around October. We pass through it in June and then October, November. What happens is that this meteor stream has spread out. It's very, very wide now, and it includes many filaments of debris. Some of them are small, and some of them are very, very large. And what appears to have happened between 12,800 and 11,600 years ago was that the Earth passed repeatedly through large bits of this meteor stream and was repeatedly impacted. So the big event is 12,800 years ago, but there's another huge event 11,600 years ago. And sea level rise at that point, it's called Meltwater Pulse 1b, is enormous. There's a huge sea level rise. Now, archaeologists say it wasn't so huge, it was spread out over a number of years, but you can't take an average as what happens in a particular year. You can have a year where there's a massive sea level rise, and another year where there's none. If you take the average of that, you're not getting the true picture of what's happening. But I think it's true to say that if our civilization was confronted by an overnight 30-foot rise in sea level, it would have devastating effects on our civilization. And it had devastating effects on the world at that time.
Well, what you've said is so broad, diverse, and includes a lot of data, cosmological, geological, and it's quite wide-ranging. And I can see how it would be difficult to make those claims irrefutably. It doesn't appear to me that anything you're saying is so contentious as to warrant censorship. Do you think that the attacks that you have been the recipient of, are motivated by the kind of reflexive protection of orthodoxy that could be applicable in any field? Or do you feel that as this pertains to our particular history as a species, our hermeneutics, our worldview, progressivism, and I mean technological, medicinal, and scientific progressivism in particular, are challenged by the idea that we are not currently experiencing the apex of human civilization, and the hubris that would be punctured by that is threatened by the idea that we are not now the greatest that we have ever been, that there is much to learn. Is that
we could be the next lost civilization too. It's all of the above, actually, Russell. First of all, there is that reflexive, defensive posture of a professional body, of an institution which wants to protect its boundaries, and that is very much clear. Secondly, it came as quite a surprise to me, but I realize it's part of the culture now. One of the reasons I was attacked was because my series, Ancient Apocalypse, seemed to be calling into question the expertise of archaeologists. And what the journalists did with that is say, what's going to happen next? Are we going to call into question all expertise? It seemed to be about a defense of experts in our society. Now, I've got nothing against experts. I'm alive today because of experts after a catastrophic epileptic seizure in 2017. I'm walking today because of experts. I've got two replaced hips. There's a huge role for experts, and I welcome much expertise, but they should never be allowed to have a dominant voice. They should not be controlling. They should not say, we know everything and you must simply do what we tell you. And that seemed to be the primary reaction to the series, that it was undermining confidence in experts, and that somehow this is threatening to our society. And then secondly, Russell, yes, you're right. The idea that I'm putting forward, that we may have lost a whole episode in the human story, which we haven't lost it completely because it's been passed down to us in myths and traditions all around the world, but that we've lost to our, if you like, our institutional memory, the notion that there existed a civilization during the Ice Age does raise important questions over our civilization today. And first of all, is it actually the apex and pinnacle of human achievement as we imagine it to be, as we're taught it is? You know, we're taught that we're the end of a long line of intellectual evolution that has finally brought us to this high point of complete control and understanding of the universe. And suddenly we're tipped from that pinnacle. And we have to wrestle with the possibility that there may have been other kinds of civilizations which may have done things in different ways from the way we do them. We may not be the best at all. We may even be the worst.
If I may create an extraordinary and odd phrase, it's like there's a kind of temporal occidentalism, the idea that indigenous and native ideas are somehow inferior and secondary, the presumption that we are at the apex, the presumption that other people are there to be colonized, the idea that there is just one linear trajectory. I notice frequently in the kind of dialogue between experts and the grateful recipients of their manna, M-A-N-N-A, yeah. That there's a kind of hubris and haughtiness, whether it's witnessing Fauci admonishing African Americans on the doorstep for vaccine hesitancy, and we're covering that in a later show, or elsewhere where there's a denial of spiritual principles based on that which is measurable. Of course, if something is ineffable and beyond our sensory dimensions, then it's going to be difficult to empirically demonstrate it. We're going to leave YouTube now, and for the rest of the show will be exclusively available on Rumble, talking about a whole range of ideas. You can click the link in the description and join us there. And remember, go to Graham Hancock's website if you want to see him live. Graham, I love having the opportunity to talk to you because I guess we get to investigate ideas that